All right, so the next section here, 7.3, is talking about something we call the slope of a line. And so we actually have a slope formula here. It says the slope of a line passing through the points x1, y1, and x2, y2 is given by this formula. And there's a formula right here for us. And so let's take a look. Okay, so here's our formula, okay? So guys, I don't want you to get so concerned about what's the x1, y1, and what's the x2, y2. All it means is that we're going to have 2 points. So we're calling them x1, y1 for the first point, and x2 and y2 for the second point, because if you remember, every point has coordinates that look like this, x and then y. That's not a very pretty x, so let's fix that. There we go. So all points look like this, x and then y, okay? So first problem here says, let's find the slope of the line through, and it gives us 2 points, and then it wants us to graph the line. Okay, so let's take a look here. So because this is my first point right here, I'm going to think of this number as my x1, and I'm going to think of that number as my y1, and then I'll think of this number as my x2, and I'll think of that number as my y2. So the only thing I'm going to do now, guys, I'm going to copy down the formula that we have right up here in the box, okay? And then from this point, it's going to be a straight plug and chug type of formula, okay? So let's see if we can do this. So let's see, y2. y2 is the number -1, okay? Then there's a minus. y1 is the number 3, okay? x2 is the number 4, minus x1 is the number -2. So I'm going to put that in parentheses, okay? All right, so let me move this up a little bit. Let's see. If we combine the numbers on top, -1 minus 3, if I owe you $1 and I borrow another 3, now I owe you 4. If you remember, minus and minus is actually going to become a plus. So 4 plus 2 should give me 6, okay? And then we can go ahead and reduce our fraction. We can divide them both by 2. That leaves me with a -2 and a +3. Okay, here's my slope. Now, I'm going to explain what the slope tells us, but I think the easiest way to explain what the slope tells us is to actually draw the line. So let's think about where we would find the point -2 and 3. So remember, the first number tells me how do I go to my left and right. Second number tells me how to go up and down. So I'm going to go to the left 2. I'm going to come up 3. So there's my first point. Okay. My second point is 4, so I'm going to go to the right 4 and then down to 1. Okay, so here's my second point. And I'm doing this freehand, guys, so if my line's a little not straight, it's actually not too bad. I apologize, but I'm doing this again freehand. Okay, so now let's take a look at what the slope is telling me. So what the slope tells me is if I know 1 point already on my line, okay, so suppose I was thinking about, say, this point right here, okay, which was the first one we plotted. If I want to find another point on my line, I'm going to use that -2 and that +3. The -2 tells me in the y direction, go down 2 spaces, and the reason I'm going down because it's a -2. So look, 1, 2, and then use the bottom number to go to the right 3 spaces. 1, 2, hey look, 3. There's another point on my line. We can do that again. Look, we're going to go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And we can keep doing that as many times as we need to. A lot of times we refer to the slope as something that we call the rise over the run, which just tells me that the top number is going to tell me how to go either up or down. The bottom number is going to tell me how to go either left or right. In this case, if we notice, my top number was a -2. So instead of rising 2 spaces, we actually fell 2 spaces because it was a -2, right? Okay, so let's see if we can do another problem similar. I'm going to kind of move my notes over here. I think this is on the next page in your notes. And so first thing I'm going to do here, guys, is I'm going to copy down my formula again, okay? So I think we said m was equal to y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. And again, just so we remember what we're talking about, this is something we call the rise over the run, okay? So again, if I think about this for a little bit, I'm going to think of that as my x1, and that's going to be my y1. And this will be my x2 and my y2. Just because that's my first point, that's my second point, okay? Okay, so let's take our number y2. y2 is the number 5, minus y1, which is the number 1. x2 is the number 3, minus x1 is the number -2. Okay. So let's see, 5 minus 1, I know that's 4. 3 minus a -2, remember that's going to become a 3 plus 2, which is 5, okay? So again, let's go ahead and plot both those points. So let's see, the first point, -2, 1. From the middle, I'm going to go to the left 2 and up to 1. So here's my first point, okay? And then 3, 5, I'm going to go to the right 3 and all the way up to 5, right there. Okay, there's my line. Okay, so now let's take a look at what this is telling me. Remember, the number on the top is what we call our rise. The number on the bottom is what we call our run. Okay, so again, just to think about this for a minute, guys, if I were to start at, say, this point right here, I would have to rise 4 spaces. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'd move to my right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, guys, I had to sneeze, and you didn't want to hear that on the video. That was pretty loud. Whew. You would have been really scared. Okay, so anywho, we found the slope of our line, right? We rose 4 spaces. We ran over 5 spaces, and we could keep doing that. You know, we could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we would find another point to be way out there, right? But the idea is we can keep doing that. So a couple of things I want to point out. I want to kind of come back to the problem that we did a little while ago, okay? And I want you to look at the line that we drew. Here was the line that we drew, right? It was this red line, and I want you to think about that line. As I'm moving to the right, wouldn't you say our line is going down, right? Okay, because I read a line as I go from the left to the right, just like I read a sentence. So if I go from the left to the right, my line is going down. Not only is my line going down, but our slope was a -2/3, right? So let me fix this real quick, because it's, here we go. And my m, which was our slope, was a -2/3, okay? So if my slope is negative, my line is going to be going downward. Or if my line is going downward, my slope will be negative. Let's look at the problem that we just did right now, right? The one that we just drew right now in red, which was this line right here. If you look at that line as I'm going from the left to the right, that line is going up, right? And look at what kind of slope we had. Our slope was positive, right? So if my line is going down, I'm going to have a negative slope. If my line is going up, I'm going to have a positive slope, okay? So let's keep scrolling on here. And the directions for these next 2 problems to say, let's just find the slope. Okay, I bet you we can do this. So look, over here on the right, I'm going to write m equals y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. Oh, I feel another sneeze coming on. Hold on, guys. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. And if you would have heard that one, you would have needed some yerba bueno to cure you from the susto. All right, so let's take a look here. Let me go ahead and think about this again, guys. Remember, I'm going to think of that as my x1 and my y1. This one here is going to be my x2 and my y2. And so again, all we're going to do is plug into the formula. Excuse me, so y2 is a -1 minus y1 is also a -1. x2 is the number -7 minus 5, okay? So remember, minus and minus make it plus. So -1 plus 1 gives me 0. -7 minus 5 gives me -12. But my slope here ends up being 0, okay? So even though it didn't ask me to draw the picture, I'm going to draw the picture over here. I'm just going to kind of shift a little bit so I can do, say, something very, oops. Okay, something, there we go, a little straighter. Okay, so what were the 2 points we had? 5, -1, -7, -1. Okay, so 5, -1, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So I'm just kind of drawing this, I know it's not perfect, but it's okay, just so we can get an idea. So we said the first point, positive 5 and negative 1. So if I were to think about that for a minute, positive 5, negative 1, I go 5 to the right, and then I would go down to 1. Okay? And the other one I want to say was negative 7, negative 1. So look, if that's negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, and then negative 1 would be right here. Guys, remember we talked about this in section 7.2? If you think about this, this is a horizontal line at y equals negative 1 because that's where it's hitting right there. Okay? And we just found the slope of that line to be 0. Remember what we said a little while ago, if my line is going up, got a positive slope. If my line is coming downward, I got a negative slope. Well, this line is horizontal. It's not going up, it's not going down, so it can't be positive and it can't be negative. Well, the one number that's not positive or negative is 0. Okay. Let's take a look, see at the next one over here. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing here. My red back. Okay. So let's see. I'm going to write down my formula again. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so let's go x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, so I'm going to have 7 minus 5 over negative 1 minus negative 1. Okay, 7 minus 5 is 2. Minus and minus become plus. That gives me a 0. Guys, the difference between this one and the one we did before, we had a 0 on the top. When we have a 0 on the top, the answer is 0. If we have a 0 on the bottom, what we actually say here is this is undefined. Let's get a visual of what that's telling me, okay? So look, here's my y-axis. Here's my x-axis. I'm going to do it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here we go. Okay, so the first point we have is the point. Get my black pen again. Okay. The first point we have is negative 1 and 5. So negative 1 to the left, up to 5. And the other one is negative 1 and positive 7. So guys, if I were to kind of, let me come back to my red. Where's my red? Here we go. Okay. Here's 6, here's 7. Okay. Come back to my black. There we go. Okay. So negative 1 and 7 would be right here. And if I were to draw that line, look at this line here. This is a vertical line. And the equation of that vertical line is x equals negative 1. So what I want you to realize here is that the slope here is undefined, right? Now let's figure out, why is the slope undefined? Remember we said if the line is going up, the line is positive. If the line is coming downward, the slope is negative. And if I were to look at that line and I were to say, is that line going up? Yes, looks like it. Or is that line going down? Ah, yes it is. So because it's a vertical line, and it looks like it's going both up and down, it can't be both positive and negative at the same time. So that's what we say our slope is undefined, okay? Again, you don't have to draw the picture. I just want you to get an understanding of why the slope is going to be undefined there, okay? So the next part we're going to do here, guys, we're going to do a little thing we call stare and compare, okay? All right. So it says the slope-intercept equation is y equals mx plus b. M is the slope. And what we want to do here, we want to find the slope of each line. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the equation that I have right here. And I'm going to look at my equation. And I'm going to say, okay, does this equation here look like it's in that form? Yeah, it looks like it. We got a y, we got a y, we got an equals, we got an equals, we got an m, we got a negative 2x with an x, and a plus b and a plus 6. Okay, because we're trying to find the slope, we're looking for the number m. M in this case is always going to be the number in front of the x. Well, the number in front of the x is the number -2. Okay. Alrighty. Let's do the same thing for the next one here. So this equation is not in that form. This equation up here has the y by itself. So if I want to get the y by itself, I need to move this -5x over. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to add 5x to both sides. Okay. So those are going to cancel. I'm going to get a y equals, I'm going to put the 5x first, guys. 5x and then plus 10. And I want you to notice I'm going to stop right here. The reason I'm going to stop, I cannot combine that one and that one. I can't combine them together, okay? One of them has an x, one of them doesn't. Now remember what we said m is. M is the number in front of the x. Well, the number in front of the x here is the number 5. Okay. All right. Let's see if we can do the same thing over here with the next one. Okay. So again, I'm trying to get the y by itself. I really want to put it in this form, y equals mx plus b. Okay. So look, let's get rid of the 3x by putting a minus 3x here and a minus 3x over here. So those will cancel. Now I'm left with a -5y. Guys, I'm going to put the x first coming, okay, or the x coming first, I'm sorry. -3x, and then that's a +1 at the end. And because I need to solve for y, I have to divide everything here by the number -5 all the way across. All the way across. So those are going to go away. I'm going to get a y equals, let's see. I can't divide those out. One's a -3, one's a -5, but I can simplify the fact that they're both negative. Remember, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Okay, a positive divided by negative is a negative, -1/5. That's okay. Remember, all we're doing here, guys, we're looking for the m. Well, the m in this case is 3/5. Okay. Righty. So now let's try the next one here. I'm still trying to find my slope. So guys, think about it this way. If I were to think about mx plus b, okay? Remember, m is the number that I'm looking for. I'm looking for the number in front of the x, right? So if I look at this equation we have right here and I say, okay, well, what's the number in front of the x? Well, the first thing I notice, there is no x. Guys, because there is no x, that means that the number in front of it happens to be 0. Because if I were to take 0 times whatever x is, it would still give me 0. And 0 plus 7 is still 7, right? So in this case here, my m happens to be 0, right? Okie dokie. So let me move. Here we go. It says graph the line y equals mx plus b for the given values. Okay. So what we're going to be doing here, guys, we're going to be drawing a line. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write out the equation that we have. Y equals mx plus b. And all I'm going to do here, guys, is fill in the blanks. Y equals m. What is our m? 3/4. There's my x, okay? And b is the number -4, so instead of writing a plus -4, I'm just going to write a -4. Okay. So let's think about what this is telling us now. When we're doing this here, the m is our slope, right? Which we were calling the rise over the run. Okay. Guys, the point 0 and b is going to be our y-intercept. Okay, we were talking about y-intercepts in 7.2. Okay, so in this case here, we already know what our m is. We know our m is 3/4, and we know our b is a -4. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here is when I draw my line, I'm going to go to the y-axis. That's the first point I'm going to plot. I'm going to plot my y-intercept. In this case, my y-intercept is 0, and b is the point -4. So if I were to say, okay, where's the point 0, -4? I'm going to stay right here in the middle, and then I'm going to go down to -4, and that's going to be my first point, okay, right there. Now, remember what we said our slope is. Our slope m is the number 3/4. This is what we call the rise over the run. So from this point that we already plotted, I'm going to go up 3 spaces. Look, 1, 2, 3. And I'm not going to make a dot yet. I'm just going to hold on right here. And then I'm going to run to the right 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Draw my line. Boom, boom. And we're done. Okay. Guys, one thing I want to point out. Look at that line. Would you say that line is going up or down? Parece que it's going up. And our slope is positive, right? Okie-dokie. Let's try the same thing for the next one over here. Okay. So guys, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to write out the equation. Y equals mx plus b. I'm going to fill in my blanks. M is the number negative 5/3 with an x plus 2. Okay. So again, we already know that our m is a negative 5/3. Okay. That's my rise over my run. Okay. And our y-intercept is 0, positive 2. Okay. So guys, oops, sorry. I thought I got my highlighter, but I didn't. Okay, here we go. This is always the first point we're going to plot. We're always going to do the y-intercept first. So 0, positive 2, stay in the middle, go up to 2. That's my first point. Now, I want you to look at the slope. Look at how it's written here. Do you see how the negative is kind of in the middle, not necessarily with the top or the bottom? When you have a negative fraction, you can think about it whether that negative is with the top or the bottom, okay? I won't think about it with both, but right now I'm going to think about it being with the top, okay? So that means from here, I'm going to go down 5 spaces. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Since the bottom number is a positive 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. And boom, there's my line, okay? So when I have that negative slope, you can think about the negative being with the top. You can actually think about it being with the bottom too if you want to. So guys, just to give you a heads up, if I wanted to think about it being with the bottom, then I would say that's a positive 5 and a negative 3. So from this point, I would have moved up 5 spaces. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4. I got to go up a little bit more. 5, 1, 2, 3, and that would have been that point up there, okay? So it doesn't really matter how you think about it, you're still going to end up on the same line, okay? Usually I go with the negative on the top, but either way will always work. Notice, though, I thought about it either with the top or the bottom, but I didn't think about it with both, right? Okay, so the next problem here says, graph the line using any method, the intercept method, finding 3 points, or the slope intercept. Excuse me. Because we're still talking about slope intercepts, I want to stick with that. I think a lot of times students find it easier, okay? So think about it like this. If I'm going to do slope intercept, this is the format that I'm looking at, okay? Wouldn't you say that equation is already in that form? I would, right? So what is my m in this case? M is the number in front of the x? Well, that's a 2/3, okay? And my y-coordinate is always going to be 0, and then whatever the number the b is here, well, that's going to be 0 and 2, okay? So just like we did earlier, guys, this is going to be my starting point. I'm always going to start with that. So 0 and 2, right here. And then since my slope is a positive 2/3, I'm going to go up 1, 2, 1, 2, and 3. Boom. And there's my line. Okay. All right. Let's try the next one here. Okay, so guys, I'm going to keep writing down this equation. And the reason I keep writing it down is because for a lot of us here, this is maybe the first time or maybe we forgot about it. But the more that I write it down, the more I'm going to remember it. Okay, so I'm going to write down y equals mx plus b. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this equation and say, does this equation here look like that? Well, not exactly. So I'll tell you what, let's write it out. We have y plus 4x equals 5. So if you notice, the x is on the other side of the equal sign. So let's do this. Let's go on minus 4x here and minus 4x here. Okay, those will cancel. Now, guys, remember, I cannot combine them. One of those has an x, one doesn't. But I'm going to always put the one that has the x first. And the reason why I'm always putting the one that has the x first is because now this equation looks like that one, right? Okay. So let's see, what is my m here? My m is the number in front of the x. Well, that number is a -4, okay? My y-intercept is the point 0 and 5. So that's going to be the first point I'm going to plot, 0, 5. So 0, 5 from the middle would be right up here, okay? Now, the next thing is, when we talk about our slope, we always talk about it as the rise over the run. But here I just see a whole number. Guys, remember, I can always think about this as being over 1. So here's my rise over my run, okay? So think about what I'm going to do now. From here, I'm going to go down 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I'm going to run to the right one of them, okay? And there's my line, okay? And if you look at that line is going downward. And again, our slope is negative, right? So these problems we seem to be doing them in the right way. Okay. Oh, okay, so that was 7.3. Let me pause that. We'll go on to 7.4.